For more content and training on telling personal story, go to ramiro.me/show. Story Legacy at ramiro.me, a show for people who want to tell their story, make an impact, and leave a legacy. Personal stories from people just like you who have gone through tough shit and came out with a story to tell. I am Ramiro, creator of Story Legacy, your story guide. And today on the show, we have from California, Lisa Barnett. Hey, Lisa, welcome on the show.
Hi, Ramiro. It's great to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. So I like to get into it right away to the tough, difficult, deep dive questions. And one question I like to ask to start the show off with is, what has been one of the biggest challenges you've gone through in life?
Well, when I was a teenager, my two best friends died. And so when I was about 13, so kind of weird long story. I was born awake. So what that means is when I was about 3 years old, I had this crazy ass epiphany. I was like, oh my God, I'm trapped in a body. And I told my mother I wanted to go back. And of course, my mother was like, uh, sure, honey, you know, sorry, nowhere to send you. Um, so, so I've had this odd awareness all of my life. So when my first friend at 13 went had a she had a brain tumor, and so she had brain surgery and went into a coma. And I had another epiphany, which was like, I should be able to heal her. I'm a healer, right? I'm 13, right? And so I thought, what could I do? I can pray. I don't even know how to pray. I was born, raised by a bunch of agnostics. And so I never went to church. I didn't even know, how do you pray? I don't know what to do. What do I do? Anyway, I felt very bad. She passed the next day, and I felt really, really guilty. I felt terrible, like it was my fault. I should have been able to save her. So so that was huge, and I literally started to study because of that. So I was living in California back then. It was 1969, and it was an interesting time, especially in San Francisco where I was. And there was all sorts of interesting spiritual books coming out. The Maharishi was just bringing transcendental meditation to the US. The Beach Boys and the Beatles were getting involved with TM, right? There was all sorts of interesting stuff coming out. And so I literally started studying and continued studying philosophy in college. And then these are like my soul sisters. These are people that I felt like, this is my soul family I've known forever. And Shubi, she lived across the street from me. We spent every single day together, walking to school, walking home, spending nights together, everything. She died in a freak car accident, and I basically told the universe, to F off. And I'm just like, I'm not doing whatever it was I came to do. Like, I know I came to do something because I'm awake, and I'm not doing it because you guys just totally took all my friends away from me. Whatever I came to do, I'm not doing it. I was quite angry and pretty stubborn. So yeah, so that was a big kind of crazy chunk of my life. I took a right-hand turn and decided not to be the healer that I thought I had come to be.
Wow, okay, you just sharing that, I just got chills. And I love I love that when you're born awake at 3 years old, you realize I'm trapped in a body. Send me back. Where's the print out the Amazon return postage? Send me back.
Right?
Oh, well,
Yeah.
nowadays you do heal people, right? And you work with the Akashic Records,
Yes,
right?
I do.
Then I bet that's been a long journey from that shift where you said to the universe, fuck off. You took my soul sisters,
Yep.
and I came here to heal, and I will not do it. Right?
Right.
so,
Yep.
so
Absolutely.
so then fast forward how many years later, it's you now being embracing that role and that mission as a healer. And so how was that shift? How long did it take? What were the events and the experiences that led to that embracing of your mission?
Yeah, so it was probably about 15-year process because I at that point I was living in San Francisco. It was a pretty wild time. We're looking at the, mid 70s, early 80s, and sex, drugs, rock and roll ruled the world, ruled my world, right? I got a job as a bartender in San Francisco. I was finishing art school. Um, I got a good job. I actually ended up in advertising as a production director for a lot of years. And I decided I'm going to do whatever it is that humans do, right? I was kind of a strange person. I was like, what do people do? What do people come to do? Right? Like, and well, it looks like in my world, they come to party and they go. And I love to travel. I went off to Europe by myself for about 3 months when I was about 24, and then I came back and I got a good job, and I kind of went down that crazy road. I worked in advertising, 3 martini lunches, all those crazy things. Not to mention San Francisco, again, sex, drugs, rock and roll. So really a good 10, 12 years later, I was pretty sick. I had really kind of trashed my body and had chronic fatigue and was really kind of starting to struggle physically with this, chronic illness. And I finally found an acupuncturist who could help me because, again, really back in the 80s, I mean, if I'd go chronic fatigue, doctors would look at you like you were nuts, like there's no such thing, I had a doctor tell me that they didn't believe in candida. And I was like, how can you not believe in candida? Babies have thrush. We have yeast infections. How can you not believe in it? I mean, this is not, okay, you might not believe that I can talk to the Akashic record keepers. I'll go with that. But you can't believe in something that you can take a swab of and, see? But their attitudes was like, well, sure, you could, but so you can clear that thrush, you can clear that yeast infection, but it doesn't go systemic. It doesn't create a chronic illness. I was like, you guys are idiots. Anyway, so honestly, I finally found an acupuncturist who understood how, really when you go back into things like, more ancient medicines and Chinese medicine, they go back to the root. What organ is suffering? What organ is weak? And we look at the body in really a different way. Anyway, she said to me one day, she said, well, I can help you heal your body, right? We can detox all this garbage and, we can get you back on track physically. But she said, but your soul wants to tell you something and I don't know what it is. So I think you should go see this friend of mine who's an amazing clairvoyant psychic and see if she can tell you what's up, right? So, so I'm in my 30s and I go and see this woman and she does a deep trance reading for hours. She went on for almost 3 hours. Honestly, I booked an hour session and she talked for 3. It was like apparently my soul had a hell of a lot to tell me, right? I'm just sitting there. I'm like, okay. And at one point, she kind of opens up her eyes and she looks at me and she's like, you're a healer. And I'm like, no, I'm in advertising, right? And I'm like, oh God, I knew that. I knew that when I was 13. I knew that 20 years ago. And I forgot. I mean, literally, it was kind of like that. Like, oh my God, I totally forgot. Anyway, so that was my perfect wake-up call. And I eventually quit my day job and and started studying healing. And I studied with her, with the amazing healer for probably almost 6 years or so. And so that I ended up opening a healing center and doing energy healing and psychic readings for my clients. And sometimes when I was doing a reading for someone, I would get this big booming voice, and the information was like so expansive. It was all these past lives and all this information about what you came to do and your soul contracts and your purpose and your all of this, like, wow, much more than normal. When I was more doing a psychic reading or an energy healing for somebody, it was a little more around the body. This was like, wow. And so that actually went on for almost 5 years before I figured out that the beings that were talking to me were the Akashic record keepers.
Mm.
So I was a little slow on the uptake there. Nobody can, I would just say a little dense from time to time. That's why it's been a whole life path for me, right? They gave me a lot of time to figure it out. But part of what had happened was that my healing teacher, the woman who I originally worked with for 6 years, taught us about the Akashic records, which was already rare back then. Now in 2021, most of the spiritual people I meet are like, oh yeah, I know about the Akashic records. I've had a reading, something like that. But imagine back in the 80s, nobody knew what the Akashic records were. Really, it was hidden knowledge. It was ancient hidden knowledge. And so my teacher had said to me, you can go up to the gates of the Akashic record, which are the library of a person's soul, and you can ask that person's record keepers to give them energy after you do an energy healing for them. But you're not allowed to go into the records. And so I was like, okay, what did I know?
Okay.
I was young back then and I didn't know any better. And so when she said you can't go in the records, I was like, go, great. I go up to the gates. I see this big stone building. I see these like ancient wise people come out, and I could see energy come down into my client's crown chakra and down into their body. And I'd be like, great, thank you. That was perfect. And that was it. But the truth is that the Akashic record keepers, who are the beings of light that keep the collective records, pulled the energy away from Earth back in the Dark Ages. So back around 1000 AD, when we were misusing all the information, people were using access to this kind of more expansive information to win their wars, to find people's gold and jewels, to, take over the world. And so the record keepers were like, okay, you guys, low energy, you shouldn't be accessing this information. We're pulling the energy further away from the planet, so you can't access it anymore. So it was actually pulled away from the planet for 1,000 years, or almost 1,000 years. And they said when they finally, I could start actually having a conversation with them because I knew who I was talking to. They said, please help us to bring this information back to humanity, because this is your birthright to have this information. And now the energy and the vibration of the planet has risen,
Yeah.
is higher than it was in the Dark Ages, a lot higher than it was in the Dark Ages. And so they said, this is really the time. We're moving forward again into a new golden era, into a new age, right? We've moved out of our, whatever the old age we were in, and into this new age of Aquarius. And there will be, I think, a lot of years of golden age. And so that's what their request was all those years ago to me. And so I told them they were crazy. They had the wrong person. And Still a little pissed off, let me say, still a little unsure about how this was supposed to play out. But I said to them, I was like, okay, why me? Why I at that point I now had like 3 babies and I'm like, I'm kind of busy with my babies. I, don't know that I can really help you bring the Akashic records back to humanity. It
Mhm.
sounded like way too big of a project for me. But they said to me, you were one of us back in the day. So the interesting story they told me was that when a soul individuates from source, most of us go on a journey, but
Mhm.
some of us go on a little bit of a shorter journey into the Akashic field, which is part of source energy, part of the quantum field. And they go there, say, to learn, to be of service, to help other souls along their path by being the record keepers for these souls. And apparently I did that way back in the very beginning. And so I was a record keeper, is what they told me. And they said, so this is why we're asking you, among, hundreds or thousands of other people. We're tapping a lot of shoulders. We're trying to get some humans to wake up and help us here. And so, of course, I said, well, I can't really say no to that. So, sure, I'll do what I can.
Wow. All right. Cool. So that was a whole lot. Let me just summarize it real quick. Okay. You're born awake. I'm trapped in a body that your mom can't send you back. And then you realize you have a sick friend, brain tumor, and you realize you have the ability and the purpose to heal her. And that doesn't happen. She passes, another soul sister passes, and you get angry and said, you know what? I'm not gonna be a healer. So you do, and then, but you're so woke, you're so awake that you don't even realize what it means to be in a body, right? You're trapped. So like, you look around, you see sex, drugs, rock and roll, and then you go that route, and basically what ends up happening is through that following what the other bodies are doing is that you start trashing that body, get sick, and then through I love how your your conversation with the doctors back then who didn't believe in candida, for example, and then through the acupuncturist you get a hint to your message, your purpose, and then a 3 hour TM healing session with a message with Akashic Records. And so you start on that healing journey, but still there was more, and that was you have the mission. Well, we invite you on this mission of bringing back the Akashic Records, and you go like, but why me? Well, because you're one of us, right? Okay, okay. I got 3 babies, but I can't say no to that. So yeah, I love that. Okay, wow. So uh,
Good recap. Wow.
so those are some things, and I love how a few questions. So back then, when you first were awake that you're trapped in this human body, like even back then where it was all this new age hippie stuff and it was so rare to find, right? I imagine that must have been very lonely because was it difficult to find people to relate to?
Um, Boy, yeah, off and on through time. I remember back when I was in high school, um, I had an older brother and he had older friends. And so all my friends were a lot older than me. Really, I was in high school, they were in college, they were out of college.
Mhm.
They were happy to listen to me rant about all the weird stuff I was reading. It was kind of a strange. So I always was very accepted by my friends and even my family.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so I've been super blessed. I always say that the smartest thing I did when I decided to come back, because we do make this choice to come back and we write a whole plan about our life. So when I wrote my soul plan, I was brilliant because I picked these lovely um, parents and family, the whole family, all, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, they're all kind of weirdly awake, even though they wouldn't particularly consider themselves that. very accepting, very curious about the work I do, asking for healings, wanting to understand it. So I picked a beautiful family instead of so many people who get ostracized by their family or their religion, right? I had this lovely, kind, loving, curious family. So, so when I made my plan, at least I didn't screw that part up.
Oh, I love that. All right. Now getting a bit deeper on it, because yes, to the people you meet, like Akashic Records nowadays is so normal. A lot of people know about that, right? And especially in who are into healing, clairvoyance, into spiritual growth, development, and yet there's still for a lot of people that is such a foreign concept, like akahu, right?
Right.
And then, so to break it down, how would you describe and define, what that is, Akashic Records?
Right. So the simple definition is that each and every one of us have our own Akashic record. And when we individuate from source, everything we ever do or be, every place, dimension, planet, including Earth, but not certainly not exclusive to Earth. Everything we do is recorded in this etheric field that we call the Akash or the Akasha. And so it would be, if now you could imagine, say you had a video camera strapped to your head, if you had a GoPro, every day recording everything you did, and every night you just upload it to the cloud. Well, that cloud is your Akashic record. And it really makes sense because actually, Akasha is a Sanskrit word for sky or ether. And so we are storing all of our soul's memory, experiences, even emotions and feelings in the cloud. And we have our very own right video cloud library. And so to me, if you can imagine that you have a library filled with books or videos of your lifetimes, and you have these beautiful pure beings of light who are your librarians. So you have a whole team that's just in service to you, who is there only to assist you with your Akashic record information. They're not angels, they're not humans who died, they're not anything else, not ascended masters. They're their own unique group, and that's all they do is keep your Akashic record for you.
I love that. And now you mentioned you used to be an Akashic record holder for people, right?
Yep.
Now, I love how you simplified that metaphor and used it for concepts we use today. So basically, to repeat what you said, your spirit, your soul, detaches from source, gets into these journeys, lifetimes on Earth, not on Earth, human bodies, not human bodies, and the Akashic records, like that spirit, that soul has a GoPro, a spiritual GoPro attached to their head, and it's recording every minute, every second, and that's being uploaded to the spiritual cloud, and that spiritual cloud is called the Akashic records, and then we're beings, Akashic record keepers who manage those. Those are the librarians or would you call them? Yeah. Anyway, librarians who keep that organized. I love that metaphor. It's so simple. It's such a great analogy. All right, thank you. And you used to be one of those record keepers. I have another question for you. Well, is it coming back to me? Do I still have it? I don't remember. I will let it go for now until it comes back.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Wow. So now one of your missions that you embraced is to bring back the Akashic records to humanity, right?
Yep.
Now, oh, the other thing came back to me, but I'll go back to that later. And that is, what does that mean to bring back the cloud to humanity, the Akashic
Right.
records to humanity? Does it mean the collective? Does it mean individual people? What does that mean?
Yeah. So because if you can imagine it kind of as a frequency or right, an energy level, and they pulled it further away from the planet so that us, when we were kind of in our dark space back in the dark ages, we were living in a very low frequency. We couldn't reach it anymore. It's like you just can't jump that high, right? So basically the concept is that we are anchoring, is the way I see it. It would be almost like if you had a hot air balloon and you had ropes and you could anchor it down to the ground, and the hot air balloon was still maybe 20 feet high, but it was connected and anchored here, and it couldn't go any higher than 20 feet, say. So we've connected it in a sense where it's high enough that many people can get there, but it's not low enough that people will abuse it or misuse it. So part of it is about energetically helping to anchor the energy back to the planet. And the way that I do that is by talking incessantly about it. And of course, I teach people how to access their own Akashic records. And that was the big piece, is they wanted me to teach humanity how to do this. So it was kind of, again, like, humanity, really? We got, whatever, 7 billion people. I'm how the hell am I going to do that, right? But, again, they're just, one step at a time. There you go. And so they said, we'll give you a process. They said, you're very galactic. You've lived in many different, other worlds. And so we will give you access keys that are connected to other worlds. So kind of complicated to say. So they gave me what they call the 5-step wisdom prayer system. And it is simple because there is an access key to open the Akashic records. And that access key is a sacred prayer. Okay. So by saying a simple sacred prayer, you can energetically move into this higher realm and connect to your Akashic record keepers. And they didn't just give me one prayer, they gave me 6 prayers. They actually want me to give me 8 prayers, but I just haven't gotten around to the next 2 yet. Coming soon, I'm sure. But so the prayers are connected to other worlds or dimensions. Like there is a Pleiadian prayer, an Arcturian prayer, a Syrian prayer, a Galactic Traveler prayer, Orion prayer, and Angel prayer. I think that's all 6 of them at the moment, right? So if you're a star seed from Arcturus, that access key, that sacred prayer, will resonate really easily with you and make it easy for you to go into your Akashic field. And if you're more Pleiadian or Syrian, same thing. You kind of have this key that opens the door to your Akashic record, and it's very connected also to your soul's lineage, right? This bigger lineage of who you've been in other times and worlds. Now, I believe we're all star seeds. We've all lived in many other worlds and dimensions. And so I also say, it's kind of like, sometimes people are like, what if I don't know what I was? It's like, you don't have to know. This is a good way to actually even learn some of that information, because when I teach my workshop, I give you 3 access prayers and we try them on and we see what we get and what they feel like. And if we get more information with A, B, or C, right? And then we start to go deeper. So we're learning and we're experimenting as we do this process. But the truth of it is, they're all keys into your Akashic record. And so the question is, do you like to sit in a rocking chair or on an overstuffed couch? Or do you prefer, to sit in a hammock? It's almost like picking an energy place to sit while you're reading your records. I don't know if that all makes sense. It's a little complicated, but this is why they've given us a variety of access keys to make it easier for more and more people to access their own Akashic records.
It makes sense to me, but I see how it can be a little bit on the complicated side.
Yeah.
So let's break it down. First question, which of the 6? You said you're a Galactarian?
Galactic Traveler.
Galactic Traveler. So that's one of the 6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So that's yours. All right, cool. Now, you're just taking a step backwards before we go into the keys. Is your so part of your mission is twofold. It's one, bringing those that level of the clouds, well, that big cloud, but also each individual has their own library, right? Bring all those libraries, the collective Akashic record, anchoring it down like the hot air balloon, right? Bringing it closer to Earth, to the human frequency. So
Yeah.
that's part of it, but not low enough, you said, so that it can be abused and misused. So
Right.
that's part of it. Lowering, anchoring down that that frequency, that Akashic frequency. And then the other is then helping individuals, people to now access that. Because even if it was too high, they could still not be more of a challenge to access and now help them. So one, lowering is that, and second, accessing, helping individuals access that. And then we get into the keys, and there's still two more to come for the 8. But will there be another 2, like 10 keys after that?
I
Maybe.
wouldn't
But
be surprised. I would so
yeah.
basically what I notice is, again, 20 years ago people didn't talk much about kind of the galactic worlds. If you believed in, ETs or other worlds, you were really far out there, right? So again, over the last 20 years that I've been like talking about this on podcasts and radio shows and summits and stuff, it's gotten more and more and more common. And now I think that most people who are on a spiritual path, or a lot of people on a spiritual path, also realize that not only do we live hundreds and hundreds of lives on Earth, we live hundreds and thousands of lives in other worlds. I mean, look at how many galaxies there are out there. We are busy. And so I think so many people have come to believe that they are or have lived at some point on a different planet or world or dimension, and that we're really all star seeds. I don't think I've ever met anybody who's just come to Earth. I don't think we go from individuating to Earth. I believe we have huge journeys forever before we ever come to Earth.
All right, cool. Now, the definition of a star seed, from what you said, is that a spirit who has been through different dimensions and galaxies, right? All right, that's a
Right.
star seed, not just Earth. All right. And you believe most of us have been through those galaxies. All right. So now breaking down the keys a little bit more in layman terms is, so because we've had all of those experiences on different galaxies and different planets, right? And then so we have, let's say, different lifetimes and thus different libraries that are connected to, yeah, those other dimensions and galaxies. And then those seed phrases, those prayers, those one of those keys, they are just a way to tap. And you mentioned the chair. It's kind of like it's a certain song, a certain frequency, a certain flavor that
Mhm.
resonates more with someone in this particular moment. And from that place, we then access all the libraries of all the other dimensions and not just that one dimension, right? It's just that,
But only of you, right? So you
yeah,
can
yeah.
go into your Akashic Library, your personal library. I'm going to say that for most of us, the majority of the information is about our human lives because we're experiencing this thing here, this challenge, this world. And so, and we come to do all sorts of great things and share things and learn and all of that. So I would say that for most people, the greater majority of information is about this world, your soul's plan, but we can also learn about who we've been in other worlds or dimensions or places or planes. So yes, that whole library of you is then available to you. And again, so for a lot of us, it's a process to, go into a library and read a lot of books. You don't just download a whole library in a minute, right? So yeah, that's what your head would do, right? And so, um, we go through the process of learning about what's important to us, what's important to our soul in this lifetime. Do we come, we all come to learn and grow, which we often call like karmic patterns. So we have these challenges, which you could look at as karmic, but they're really kind of ongoing patterns of things we haven't figured out yet. And that's all about your soul wanting to grow and learn and become wiser. And eventually, really, we like to teach a lot of what we learn when we're here embodied. So we make a whole complicated plan to have soul contracts with people, to work through some of our karmic patterns and grow as a soul. And we bring gifts and talents back to the world that we'd like to share. So all of that is part of what you wrote in your soul's plan. And all of that is really part of your soul purpose.
Beautiful, and that was exactly what I wanted to come back into. And but before that, we'll come back to that. Is I love how you define karma, the karmic patterns, as patterns that we have not figured out yet or learned from yet. Right? That has a more neutral tone to it than it's, because karma, there's good karma, bad karma, neutral karma, but the word itself for a lot of people has that negative heavy connotation, right? And so I love your definition of it's just a pattern that we're still figuring out, right? And so again, those key phrases, and in your workshops you just, let's test out these three and see how they resonate. Let's try on this chair, see how comfortable that chair is. Do you want a hammock? Which one is more comfortable for you to sit in whilst you read and access the libraries and Akashic Records? So that is a little breakdown to bring it into more tangible layman terms. It might still be over some people's head. We'll see. If it is, we'll hear about it. First, so some people were already going, yes, I want that. How can they, one, do a workshop with you or find you and work with you? How can they do that? Where can they find you?
So the easy way is just to go to my website, which is akashicknowing.com. And I don't know if you've got show pages or someplace that
no,
you
but
spell that, or no?
akashickknowing.com.
Right.
Yeah,
Right,
people will
right.
find that. This is for mostly focused audio only. akashickknowing.com. All right, cool.
Right. And so I teach online workshops. I'm actually in the middle of one right now. The next live online workshop will be in February, but people can also find my home study program, so they could, download that and just jump in and get started whenever they want. And I also, I'm that healer, right? So I still do a couple of Akashic reading and healing sessions with clients. And you'll find all of that, including my 2 books, all on my website at akashickknowing.com.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you. akashickknowing.com. You got a whole bunch to offer: workshops, to download, live classes, and even the one-on-one clients, Akashic healings and readings, right? So, all right, beautiful. I love that. Now, you mentioned something else on the plan we have when we come. So again, that to me also it makes sense. I know that's normal, but this is so important because a lot of people still have that saying of, you don't choose your parents. And this concept of a plan is actually the opposite, right? So you mentioned you were wise enough, creative enough, insightful enough that when you came down here, you chose the right people to and included them in your plan here in this human body right now. So yeah, please break that into more details for someone who is, wait, what?
Sure.
I make a plan to come here. I did not plan for my best friend to die at 13 years old. This was not my plan, right? I did not plan for my mom to die before I was even 1, right?
Yeah.
It's God, what is your plan? And so again, what is that plan you're talking about? Just a little more into layman and broken down a little bit more.
Absolutely. So, I'm like, let's see. This is the 3rd book I'm writing right now, so that'll be out next year. But So the idea is that we are ancient and wise souls, and we actually have so much information that we would like to utilize. We want to share those gifts. We want to use those talents that we've honed over 20 other lifetimes here on Earth, or lifetimes in other worlds or dimensions. We want to support people. We want to, have love in our lives. We want to have, well, we all have some kind of parents, right? And many of us go on and have families, whether it's a significant partner, or some of us have children, et cetera, best friends, all of that family you get to create if you'd like. So lots of kind of ideas and concepts that we would like to put into our soul plan. So the record keepers are pure love. They're pure source energy. So they're funny. So when they first started explaining this to me, they said, so imagine back when you were in high school, you remember when you'd go to the gym, those gymnasiums that had those squeaky floors because they play basketball in the gym, right? And you'd have those whatever rah-rah things every, once a week or whatever that was. So imagine you're going back to Earth and you get everybody that's going back that around the same time, and y'all get into that big gymnasium with the squeaky floors, and you go, okay, I think I'd like to have kids. Who wants to be my child? And you have a couple people pop up. They were like, hey, remember I was your child before and that was really fun. Let's do it again. And somebody else says, hey, remember when I was your mother, let's do the flip-flop this time. I'll be your child this time, and I'll help you be a good mom. And some of you who have children who treat you like the child, you'll get what I'm saying, right? And so all of these different soul contracts we make. Who wants to marry me? Let's see what we want to work out. What do I want to learn through my marriages? Right? So we might write a soul contract to be married to one person that is a short-lived contract because you want to learn about self-esteem or independence or codependency, or, we want to learn about all sorts of different things. And so we say, okay, so maybe I'll have that relationship and maybe I'll have this relationship. And then, oh, well, here's this person who's saying, hey, who's part of my soul family that I've had lots of different lives with. And maybe we'll write a long contract to be together and have a family. So we make 12, 25 soul contracts with people to even a half a dozen or a dozen for significant partners. That means those people you might marry or be with for a very long time. We make 25 or 50 soul contracts for other people, which could be kids and best friends and business partners, support teams, all of that. So you might have, 50 or more soul contracts with people. Some are from your soul family, who is the original family you individuated from source with. Some of them may be souls that you've known in other lifetimes, and maybe through those other lifetimes, you created some karmic patterns. Maybe you had a challenging relationship and you didn't figure it out before you died. And so you're like, hey, let's try that again. Let's see if we can learn to go out of jealousy and into compassion and forgiveness, and we can make that work. And so we're complicated. We write complicated soul plans, and of course part of them is, I want to bring these gifts and talents. I want to be a writer. I want to be a teacher. I want to be a speaker. I want to be an inventor. I want to be a parent. I want to support other people to help animals. I want to help the earth, right? So we write lots of also big kind of projects into our soul's plan. And so it's not just a simple, what one thing did I come to do? You've come to do it all. And that's part of your purpose.
I love that. Now, you mentioned it's kind of like you gave the metaphor of assembling in the school gym to make this soul plan. So it's like this whole general assembly of these soul spirits that are that have affinity with, that are about to come back here in this on this earth as a human body, and then making up these contracts. And the one I love what you mentioned is maybe it's this relationship which ends up in the physical form of a marriage that is doomed to fail.
Right?
Yeah. So all right, yeah, that's that makes so that so if understanding that, gives us another insight and perspective on how we view relationship. And yes, we do choose our parents and our kids and our spouses on another, let's say, like spirit soul level,
Right.
right?
And yeah, yes, we do. And I think it's important to also know we sometimes pick challenging parents because we want to help them or support them. We want to be the love or the light in their lives to maybe help them overcome their addictive patterns or their anger or whatever their challenge might be. So we may pick a really challenging family to support them, and or we may pick a challenging family or parent to learn also and grow in some sort of way. So I know there's a lot of light workers here on the planet who have picked parents who have abusive tendencies, whether it's right emotional or physical or sexual. It's a trauma to those children. And the child or that soul's plan was to understand that pattern to possibly complete a karmic pattern, which means they may have been that to other people in other lifetimes, right? So they're not here to be punished. They're here to understand and complete a cycle, and often to understand to a level that you can maybe go out and help other people understand or heal that trauma.
Mm, mm,
So we
beautiful.
choose traumatic um, lives or situations. We choose trauma in order to heal it, to understand it, and to share the wisdom that we get from that experience.
Mm. We choose those traumatic experiences lives to complete that learning and to share it with others who experience it right now. Beautiful. Okay. Wow. Thank you, Lisa. So we're about to wrap up. A question. One of you. You may have already said this, but just for emphasis' sake, again, if you had a message to share for people today, tomorrow, 1,000 years from now, and actually for the Akashic Records, what message would that be?
You are really and truly an infinite and wise soul. And when you can step into that empowering concept, we can truly open to the greater wisdoms of the universe. And your Akashic record keepers are here to support you in all of that, in your growth, in your learning, and in fully actualizing who you are as that beautiful infinite soul.
Hmm. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. All right, this was Story Legacy at Ramiro.me. So, Lisa, now we are going to end on a kapow. Are you ready?
I am ready.
You know how now? Kapow!
Kapow!
All right, thank you. Ending